Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hypertrophy Odyssey. It is the second day of the week, aka the Spirit Bomb workout. I'm feeling very good right now, very excited for this workout. To the main subject matter for today, which is a little bit more of a self-reflective one. I care too much. So in today's episode, it's going to be a little bit of a contrast from a previous episode. See this one right here about how I want to stay uninformed. Now, when I say I want to stay uninformed, and I hope I reiterated this in that video, it is in a certain sense of the things that are happening in the outside world that isn't in my world, really. I don't really care for many things that are going around in the news and all this other stuff. World events, nothing ever happens. So for me personally, I don't really care. The thing about the world around me, though, is that I do care. I care a lot. I care actually probably too much. And this was something that I realized more recently, which is an interesting issue to have. I think that caring is a vast quantity depending, of course, on what and where and when it's happening. So, for example, you're going to care more about people that you're immediately, working with rather than worked previously with, or the future people that you're going to work with because you don't even know them. That's just a small example of that. But there are other examples where people that are in your life currently, but have stayed in your life, let's say a friend who has been a friend for a while, then leaves your life for some reason or another, just things go awry, or things just grow apart and such, but then that there is some still level of care in that sense, where it's like, I hope they are doing well. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at that and just talking more about the caring and how I do a little too much of it and how it's probably one of the downfalls of mine, really. And it's a very interesting one to at least look back at because I never really noticed it until recently. So with that being said, though, we'll talk about all that and a few other things when we get to Mother Base. Alright, so start this day off with squats, which are pretty good. But anyways, back to the main subject matter for today. I care too much. And the main reason why I want to discuss this is because, like I said in the beginning of this episode, I wanted this to be more of a self-reflective idea of an episode, not really necessarily going into some particular deep dive about caring and what it means to care and all that other jazz, because that's a different episode for a different day. But as well, most of the time people don't actually really care about that in a certain sense. They want to know how they do have that in their own world. And that was my issue, really, is that I found myself being more caring about stuff that in reality doesn't matter. And a lot of the times this happens a lot, and I think that this has been an issue in a lot of my life in a certain sense where I care too much about, let's say, minute details or the way things are oriented or things like that, where it's less about the substance of the material that is in front of me and more so the visuals or the outside appearance of certain things. And I think that that's been more of one of my downfalls more of the time than not, but also as well just caring about certain things and relationships that in reality don't necessarily need as much care as they do. Right now, technically, I have a friend who I've had on and off friendship with, basically. Not necessarily off, really, but just times where we're not talking a lot. But also at the same time, as an adult, I understand that, of course, we're just not going to be, constantly together all the time. But there are certain things where it's like, all right, I can at least understand that now. But like before, it would be like if we didn't talk for a little while, it's like, oh, are we not friends anymore, that type of thing. But it still is just kind of an interesting idea that, yeah, you probably aren't nearly as much in somebody else's mind than you would probably think. And that's something that I think personally I don't do well with. I think that I think way too much about these things. I'm hyper autistic about the idea of being in somebody's mind or the way that I'm interpreted by others, just because I want to make sure that it is in a good way, because obviously I want to make my intentions known. There are a lot of people out there that will misinterpret a lot of stuff, or at least I will too. I'm part of that guilty boat where I will take things to a further degree, but that's just one of my errors. I guess I try to look at other people and try to care about them more than they would want and or even have the inkling to do for themselves. And I think that I wouldn't necessarily say it's a character flaw, but just a trait nonetheless that I exhibit, especially amongst those that are in my personal life, because I'd rather have them be exceedingly doing well in life and, of course, always being nosy about it. It's a very interesting thing because most of the time I tell people that I don't care, and in all honesty, I don't. That's the funny thing, is that technically I don't necessarily care about what they're talking about in a certain sense, but I care about them in that sense. So they could tell me literally anything at that moment whenever they're talking to me about whatever they care about, and I will care about that rather than the actual substance or the surface level idea of what they're telling me, if that makes any sense. And it's a very weird dichotomy because I do
do obviously care. It's just what they're telling me doesn't necessarily matter, if that makes any sense of the word. Even saying this out loud, it sounds pretty retarded, but I think that people would probably understand this once I exude that out, especially because you get to a point where it's not necessarily about what the substance or what they are saying it is about, but more so that you just want to hear about their day or about what's happening in their life, a catch up, if you will, a making sure that things are in the clear, in the good, really. And I think that that's the thing that has been very much weighing me down a lot, and especially because recently, more than often than not, I've been finding that I do care a lot more about people in my life, as like making sure that they are doing well and making sure that they are set for whatever they want to do and continue on. Now that I actually have more responsibilities at work, it makes things a lot more interesting because I have to care about these people, not even though some of it is slightly forced in a certain sense, but also at the same time, I wish no harm upon these people because at the end of the day, they are people. As much as I could be evil in certain ways of my life, I don't think that there's a chance that I will be that evil, where I just don't, I want death upon these people. And I don't think I have the hate in my heart for that for a lot of people. It's a very rare instance where that would even happen. But still, it's something that is a very interesting dynamic that has shifted in my life. Ever since I created this video, a lot has happened since this video was actually filmed. And I think that it is good to care about people and understand what's going on in their lives and try to be a part of their lives as much as you can. But there is an inverse where I think that you should always do it reciprocal to the other person. So the other relationship that is in it should be the exact same. The entire idea of don't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, that idea. And it's a tough cookie or a tough pill to swallow for me personally, because there are some times where you kind of have to pick up the slack, especially when there are other people that won't do it for themselves. I mean, there's a friend of mine, I'm not going to name names, but unfortunately it took years for that something to let it finally go, because it was so long of just trying to go back and forth and caring way more about this relationship than any right to. I mean, it dragged on for more than like 5 years, I would say, of just pure, I wouldn't say hate, but like unadulterated dragging of one side of trying to get a betterment out of him. But at the end of the day, it just didn't work. And 5 years is a long time to just say, all right, dude, you fucked up. All right, I'm done. And that takes me, that just shows you how long it would take for me to get past something where the other person isn't even returning anything back. And it sucks because I still think about that, even though it is something that now has been in the past, it's still something that is still weighs on my mind every once in a while as something that could have been done better or something that I could have done in a different way, because I still, at the end of the day, care as much as I don't want to actually care, because I understand that caring means that you have some part of your psyche upon the subject matter that you're putting out there. So if by doing that, you're thinking about it, you're giving your energy to it, and it sucks because then if the person's not reciprocating that back, then it's just wasted energy or wasted potential that you could be giving to something else, and it's tough to separate that.
And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercises not filmed, none. Exercises skipped, also none. Got everything in, thankfully. But anyway, back to the main subject matter for today. I care too much. So the main reason why I want to discuss this is because this was something that was on the mind for a while there, especially because I've been looking back and realizing that a lot of the mistakes that I make in life have to do with the amount of care and attention that I put into things that probably aren't as important as they should be in my life. So thus, that's why I will do things like immediately take up a project at the wrong time, or just care of somebody who will not reciprocate it back, or the other way around where I will care too much about what others think of me, that entire idea. And it is a double-edged sword, because in certain senses it does work out for me if whatever I'm giving my care to is worth it, but also as well, it's sometimes not worth it at all. And I think that it's my weakest character trait, and that is a weird one to say, but at the same time, it's something that I've realized is my weakest character trait. So it's something to work on, because I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to care about something that in theory is going to do nothing for me. And I think that is the main lesson out of all of this, or at least just the thing that I wanted to get to, because I think that there are certain points and certain things that you can and should care about, and overly care about even, but then there are other things that you shouldn't even waste your time. You shouldn't even waste your breath on it, And I think this is something that is troubling, not necessarily to me personally, but many people have this issue. I wouldn't say it's an everybody issue, because there are people who have the complete opposite idea, where they don't care enough laugh about things, you know? So it is something where I'm trying to balance myself out, but I know it's going to be probably the tallest task humanly possible, as it is one of those things that I just can't bring myself to do. You know, it's 33 years of my life, kind of hard to pivot something fundamentally weak of mine. It's also good to know and verbalize the weakness, because some people will go through life wondering what's going on and what happened or why is this happening over and over again, but never really actually verbalizing it or never realizing what happened or all that other stuff. At least here I can immediately bone out my weakness, so then if that way I see it popping up and being a bad idea, then I could possibly quail it. But it is something that it took me a while to realize that was an issue. Now, of course, this isn't the worst issues of all. Of course, there are other issues that I may or may not have, but this was something that was a revelation to me, and I was very thankful for that revelation, because in a certain sense it helps frame certain aspects of my life in a little bit of a better light, because then I understand why certain aspects are weakened in my mind, why I may give more than I need to, you know, that entire idea. So it's just a little bit of a nice self-reflective type of video. But with that being said, tell me what you think in the comment section down below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one. This one's something that would be along the lines of this channel. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video with anybody who may or may not like it. I will be back on tomorrow with a new video. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Keep it heavy, stay safe out there, and stay warm, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!